What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, super pumped to bring you this video because it couldn't have come at a better time. We're going through the top 20 projected players, and this is actually part 2. Part 1, we went through ranks 1 through 10, and just to be clear, rankings and projections are slightly different. Projections are assuming health, breaking out target shares, overall yardage, projected touchdowns, to give them a projected ranking. Now, we do have to adjust those based on other factors like risk, which could include injury concerns, depth chart concerns, etc. But no, we're just going through the straight numbers, presuming health on all these players. Where do we think they would finish? And we're talking about wide receivers and running backs ranked 11 through 20. And I said it couldn't have came at a better time because we just posted the early round strategy video yesterday. And if you haven't seen it yet, please check it out after this video. It is the most important video that we post on this channel every year. And it just highlights the importance on hitting on your early round picks. Because if you don't, you best believe an opponent will. And playing catch up is not a position you want to be in leaving the draft. But if we could, guys, could we like this video? Ever since we got back from the mini suspension, we've been posting videos every day, and that's not going to stop. And we're going to hit on every topic for the remainder of the offseason every day. So no matter what, you're going to be prepared for your draft, and FFA will be right by your side. So let's get right into the stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which player had the highest catch rate on deep passes, and the answer may surprise you. One person got it right, and it was Zach Ertz. Congratulations, Grizzly Bear, you got on the scoreboard, but let's see if you can get this one. So which wide receiver with over 50% of his snaps from the slot had the highest catch percentage? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. But with that, let's talk projections. Keep in mind, these are subject to change. They've already changed since we posted the top 10 video, and they will change. If you're listening to this video in late August as you prepare for your draft, they may be a bit outdated, but you can always access this information on the website if you purchase our draft package, which is coming in at an insane value. You can get it for free, and if not, it's still the lowest price for the amount of information that you're going to get. We're talking player projections for over 400 players, tier-based draft rankings, in-depth player breakdowns, injury analysis, risk ratings from Dr. Daniel Khalil, a board-certified practicing surgeon who goes in-depth to break down those tough cases, and he's going to come out with a video on Devonta Freeman by popular demand, so expect to see that coming up soon. So if you want to access that, you know where to get it. Link is in the description below. Don't miss out. Set yourself ahead of your competition this year and invest in your 2019 season. Okay, let's get into it. We're going to start with Damien Williams, who people who follow the channel know that we are high on. In fact, Nick himself has the highest ranking of Damien Williams in the entire experts industry, and it could possibly be too low. And you have to think of it this way. Giving Damien Williams a 67% carry split and 11% of the target market share on this offense, he's going to outperform any ADP on any platform. And those are modest projections because we lost Tyreek Hill, we have Travis Kelce, and you have Sammy Watkins, who has not played a full season since 2014. Who else is on this offense? Well, let me just name some. You have Hardman, Garrett Dieter, Marcus Kemp, Josh Crockett, Byron Pringle. So undoubtedly, you got Travis Kelce, Sammy Watkins, and Damien Williams. Yes, there is Carlos Hyde on the roster, but the coaching staff has already came out and said it's Williams' job, and Carlos Hyde has not been able to keep a starting position for many years now, nor has he even been able to stay healthy. He does have this illusion of being an efficient back, and most people do believe that he is graded highly in advanced metrics, but in fact, no, he is always graded very poorly in many categories like receiving efficiency, elusiveness, breakaway percentage. So the only way Damien Williams does not perform well is if he goes down with an injury, and we're not drafting scared. Kareem Hunt finished as the running back 11 in half-point PPR last season, and he only played in 11 games. This is a high-powered offense. They're going to need to get their weapons involved, and Damien Williams proved enough last season to deserve this ranking. We have him at 67 targets, 51 receptions, 444 receiving yards, and a little over 5.5 touchdowns. If he plays a full 16-game season, he should still be able to rush for over 1,100 yards, and the lack of weapons in the red zone should allow Williams to reach pay dirt upwards of 10 times, okay? So that's 274.8 points in half-point PPR, and you don't need me to tell you that is RB1 status. So yeah, fire up Williams, draft him while you can, because I have a feeling his ADP is going to climb. Next up, we have Melvin Gordon, who is just about 1 point per game behind Damien Williams. And no, it's not because we are low on Melvin Gordon. It's more that we are high on Damien Williams. And in fact, Melvin Gordon has finished as the RB7, the RB5, and the RB7 over the past 3 seasons. So there's nothing that indicates that's going to change. But there is that return of Hunter Henry, which does cap the touchdown upside. We know that they still have Mike Williams coming off a double-digit touchdown year. Keenan Allen finally seems like he can stay healthy. So there's just a plethora of weapons. There's no doubt Melvin Gordon is going to remain involved, and he is going to have a safe floor. The Chargers offense should remain a high-scoring offense. But just due to Melvin Gordon's injury risk, we could see them lightening his load a little bit, because remember, we have not seen this team this healthy with this much talent. Keenan Allen, first round Mike Williams, top tight end prospect Hunter Henry, and a running back that they haven't been able to have healthy for a playoff run. But don't get us wrong, he's still a great target. And with the importance of securing a running back early, Melvin Gordon is definitely going to be on everybody's radar. We have him statted out for 252 points in half-point PPR, with 1,093 rushing yards, 8.6 rushing touchdowns, another 53 receptions for 478 receiving yards, and just under 3 receiving touchdowns. So he's still going to reach double digits in the touchdown department. We just see slight reduction in carries, and it's not even a big drop-off, guys. The last time that he played 16 games, he had 284 carries, 1,105 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And if this Chargers team wants to bring the full package to the postseason, keeping Melvin Gordon healthy has to be a priority. Regardless, still a great target, and undoubtedly he's going to be a stud this year. But let's move on to the next guy, and it's Nick Chubb. I think I owe Nick Chubb an apology because I put him on our do not draft list earlier this offseason, and I think that was a little too harsh. Albeit, I wish Kareem Hunt was coming back for the first 8 games and then suspended the final 8 games, so we had a full-blown Nick Chubb for the fantasy playoff run. But what I didn't do, and what I made a mistake of, was not giving this guy enough credit for what he was able to accomplish last season. Pro Football Focus rated him the number 2 highest graded running back last season. He ranked first in elusiveness rating, and this offense should be much improved with the addition of Odell Beckham. So you're talking more scoring opportunities for a running back who is already able to average 16.6 half-point PPR points per game. And that's not even through a small sample. That was through the final 8 weeks of the season. And if you get him close to the end zone, he can convert. He had 7 touchdowns last season through that span. And if we're talking maximum upside, this dude could go upwards of 18 touchdowns. Now, defenses cannot stack the box against him, or else you're going to open yourself up to being completely demolished by Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, and Baker Mayfield's arm. I got to give the kid some credit. We have him statted out for 34 receptions, 279 yards, just under 4 touchdowns, with 248 carries for just under 1,300 rushing yards. Add on the 9 rushing touchdowns and you have 249 half-point PPR points for the season. So he very well may be your ticket into the playoffs. And by that time, if you listen to our waiver advice, you probably grabbed a stud off waivers. And if you got our draft package, you probably drafted a few running back gems as well. So any loss in production when Kareem Hunt returns, you'll be able to negate. And man, can we all just admit that we are excited to see this Browns offense this year? I know I am. But that's enough about that. We got to move on. Let's talk about Joe Mixon. So the Bengals just lost their top rookie offensive tackle, Jonah Williams. And we haven't updated the projections since, but what we do know is that Joe Mixon can perform regardless of the talent around him. He had a backup quarterback, no bona fide wide receiver one, AJ Green, and he was putting up RB1 production. He's coming into his third season and he's only 23, 93rd percentile height adjusted speed score, 77th percentile SparkX score, 90th percentile college yards per carry, and 81st percentile college market share. So he can catch, he can run, and he's going to be efficient. And this season is going to be no different. I'll leave this question up to you. With the news that he lost his offensive lineman, would you put him ahead or behind James Conner? James Conner, as we know, he's been falling down our rankings. The Steelers have been making us scratch our head. They've been using a bell cow running back system dating all the way back to when Mike Tomlin started as the head coach over 10 years ago. But all the news coming out says there's going to be a split. Would you roll the dice with James Conner or stick with Joe Mixon? Leave it in the comments section down below. We have Mixon statted out for 1,090 rushing yards, 10.5 touchdowns on the ground, another 55 receptions for 440 yards, with a good chance to score in the receiving game as well. That stats him out to 247 half PPR points per game. But he's going to be a hot commodity come draft day, regardless of how the offensive line shakes out. We still have a handful of players to go over, so bear with me. But guys, if you want this information, you don't have to get it just from this video. You can sign up for our draft package and you can have over 400 plus of these player projections. In fact, these breakdowns you can also get on all players on your draft board. Not to mention the machine learning model, which predicts the outcome of games against the spread, money line, over under, you name it. It was over 70% last season. Vegas is happy with 55%. And that's just an added bonus. To see all the benefits of the draft package, check the link in the description box below. There's a way you can get it for free and sign up today. But moving on, we have DeAndre Hopkins of the Houston Texans. And a lot of you are probably wondering why we have him ranked so low. And remember, it's not rankings, it's projections. And running backs are king when it comes to scoring points over wide receivers. Because believe me, we are big fans of DeAndre Hopkins. He's been over 1,200 yards for the past 5 seasons and has averaged 170 targets over the last 4. His finishes since 2014, wide receiver 14, wide receiver 4. He had a blip where he was wide receiver 29, but then he finished first and second the past 2 years in half PPR scoring. What we're looking for in fantasy football is targets, and that's something DeAndre Hopkins can provide. We have no problem if you take him as the top wide receiver off the board. His touchdown upside is also massive. We've seen Deshaun Watson get on that heater, and he did lead all players with 15 targets inside the 10-yard line last season. So for Hopkins, we're giving him 94 receptions, 1,398 yards, and a conservative 9 touchdowns. Would any of us be surprised if he passed that? No. We're following up Hopkins with another wide receiver that's can't guard Michael Thomas out of New Orleans. And on this channel, we talk about preaching safety in the early rounds. It does not get any safer than Michael Thomas. In fact, he has had more receptions over his first 3 seasons than any other player in NFL history. Not by a little either, by 33 receptions. And if that wasn't good enough, the 3rd most fantasy points ever over that stretch of time, behind just Randy Moss and Odell Beckham Jr. His averages 107 receptions, 1,262 yards, and 7.67 touchdowns. Then you're factoring in that he's only missed 1 game in his entire career, so he has the floor, he has the ceiling, and undoubtedly has top 5 upside at the position. This season, we have him statted for 111 receptions for 1,260 yards and 9 touchdowns. That's good for 237 half PPR points. And if you get him as your wide receiver 1, you can lock him in every week. He's got the upside, he's got the floor, and he's going to be a great anchor for your team. I bet you were wondering when this next wide receiver was going to be mentioned, and that's Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings. You don't need us to tell you, he had the tale of two seasons, 8 consecutive games over 100 yards. His average, over 9 receptions, 116 yards, and 0.75 touchdowns. But over the final 8 games, he had just one triple-digit yard game. His stat line, under 5 receptions, 56 receiving yards, and 0.4 touchdowns. He went from the top scoring wide receiver to just the wide receiver 26. So you have to ask yourself, what version of Thielen are you going to get this season? But regardless, these are projections, and he can put up numbers. Whether he does it in one half of the season or not, he's still going to have the stat line at the end of the year. So for that, he's going to be much higher in the projections than he is in the rankings. And we have him at 98 receptions for 1,381 yards and 7 touchdowns. Completely doable. Hopefully he can do it consistently throughout the whole season. But if you draft him, you know you have upside. But don't be surprised, we've seen him dip down to low-end wide receiver 2 production. But bouncing back, we have a running back, and that's Leonard Fournette. Never really been a fan of inefficient running backs here at Fantasy Football Advice, and Leonard Fournette is the epitome of inefficiency. He's going to get the workload though, and projections have him statted out, if healthy, to have a hefty workload of 294 carries. His career 3.7 yards per carry average is not going to help him out though, which unfortunately is going to lend him to a stat line of just under 1,100 yards with just under 300 carries. You know they're going to put their big bruising running back in anytime they get close to the goal line. So if he plays 16, 9 touchdowns is certainly doable. And he did show some chops as a receiver, so we have him for 43 receptions for 370 yards. Another 2 receiving touchdowns on top of that. The big question is though, can he stay healthy? Probably not. And for that reason, I do not think that we will have Leonard Fournette at his current draft price. But if he plays a full season, he's certainly going to come in as a value. You had to know this was coming. We're going back to Minnesota, and we have Stefon Diggs. And as you know, we are big fans of Stefon Diggs because he's just a good receiver. And this season, he's actually coming in at a great value. He's going around the late 3rd, early 4th round. And while he is super risky to rely on as your top guy, his ADP is priced so that he doesn't have to be. You can already have 2 running backs and a bona fide wide receiver 1, leaving him as an upside wide receiver 2. He's never really put it together, but we've seen flashes of excellence. And with a quarterback like Cousins coming into year 2, there's certainly going to be an opportunity for him to perform. And while he didn't have that upside of Adam Thielen like he did in the first 8 weeks, he did have nearly 30% of the team's air yards. And he's in the prime of his career on an offense that has a consolidated market share. You know where the targets are going, and if he can avoid injuries, these projections certainly have him at his best season of his career with 98 receptions, 1,225 yards, and 9 touchdowns. That's right, 234 half PPR points. Clearly, we expect an uptick in this Minnesota offense, and it's going through Diggs, and it's going through Thielen. We have one more running back left, and that is Leveon Bell of the New York Jets. And a lot of you are probably surprised that he made it this low, but guys, he has not seen the field since 2017, and it all comes down to the unknowns. Right? He's switching teams from an offense that was top 5 with a lot of weapons. You can never stack the box with Antonio Brown there. And now your best receiver is Robbie Anderson, which no offense to Robbie Anderson, but he is no Antonio Brown. And don't get me wrong, we do expect this offense to get better. And Le'Veon Bell is the best player on this team, and they paid a lot of money for him, so they want to look correct. But you're going from a top 5 offense to the 23rd ranked offense in points per game and 26th in plays per game. His projections, though, still have him slotted out as a late 2nd round pick, which is probably where we'd feel comfortable taking him, just because there are a lot of unknowns, and we're preaching safety here. But anyways, let me get to the projections. We have 291 carries for 1,199 rushing yards with 6 rushing touchdowns. Add another 52 receptions for 417 receiving yards and another touchdown through the air. And that brings you to 234 half PPR points for Le'Veon Bell for 2019. Pretty respectable stat line, but with all the unknowns, it's best to probably look elsewhere, which is a shame because we do know Leveon Bell is a top 5 talent, but sometimes you have to go a little risk averse. But hey, we all know risk presents upside. So it's an investment that could pay off, but a risky one at that. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you made it this far, please give this video a like, and if you're new, subscribe. And while you're at it, hey, check out that video I was mentioning earlier in the beginning, the early round strategy video. It is spectacular. If you haven't seen it yet, we're going to link it right in the end card. Click right here, watch this video, watch some more videos while you're at it too. But anyways, thank you all for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.